Growing up in a small town where everyone knew your business wasn't easy for Alex. He'd always been the quiet one, the guy who preferred books to parties, and who had a small but tight-knit group of friends. At 23, Alex had dated a few people, mostly brief relationships that fizzled out before they really began. There was always something missing, a connection he couldn't quite find, though he couldn't put his finger on why. His days were spent working at the local bookstore, a job he loved for the peaceful atmosphere and endless supply of stories that transported him far beyond the boundaries of his hometown. It was during a particularly busy Saturday shift that he first met Jamie. The guy had walked in looking for a specific poetry collection, and Alex had been immediately struck by his easy confidence and warm smile. Jamie was new to town, having moved there for a job at the local community college teaching literature. He was 25, with an infectious laugh and a way of talking about books that made even the most boring classics sound fascinating. They'd hit it off immediately, their conversation flowing naturally from book recommendations to favorite authors to life stories. Over the next few weeks, Jamie became a regular at the bookstore, often stopping by during Alex's shifts just to chat. They discovered a shared love of obscure indie films, which led to movie nights at Alex's apartment. These evenings quickly became the highlight of Alex's week. Just the two of them, takeout containers scattered around, debating plot holes and character motivations until the early hours of the morning. What made their friendship particularly comfortable for Alex was Jamie's openness. During one of their first hangouts, Jamie had casually mentioned an ex-girlfriend, saying, "I'm only into girls, but I believe friendship connections can be just as meaningful as romantic ones." This clear boundary had actually put Alex at ease. He'd never been great at navigating the uncertain territory of new friendships, always worried about misreading signals or creating awkwardness. With Jamie's straightforward declaration, Alex felt free to enjoy their growing friendship without second-guessing every interaction. Their connection grew stronger as autumn turned to winter. They started spending more time together, hiking local trails, checking out new restaurants, or just driving around with no destination in mind, windows down despite the cold, singing along to shared playlists. Alex introduced Jamie to his small circle of friends, and Jamie fit in seamlessly, as if he'd always been part of the group. But something began to shift between them, subtle at first, then impossible to ignore. It started with lingering glances, Jamie's eyes staying on Alex just a moment too long when they laughed together. Then came the casual touches, a hand on Alex's shoulder that remained there, fingers brushing when passing a drink, sitting just a little closer than necessary on the couch during movie nights. Alex found himself increasingly aware of these moments, his heart racing each time Jamie moved closer, a confusing mix of emotions swirling inside him. One night, after watching a particularly intense film about forbidden love, they sat in silence as the credits rolled. The atmosphere in the room felt charged, different from their usual comfortable quiet. Jamie turned to face Alex, their knees touching on the small couch. "Can I ask you something?" Jamie's voice was soft, uncertain in a way Alex had never heard before. "Have you ever felt something for someone that you didn't expect to feel? Something that made you question things about yourself?" Alex's mouth went dry. He wasn't sure how to respond, what Jamie was really asking. "I think everyone has moments where their feelings surprise them," he answered carefully, watching Jamie's face for clues. Jamie nodded slowly, his eyes dropping to his hands. "I've always been so sure about who I am, what I want. I've only ever been attracted to women. At least, that's what I always told myself." He looked up, meeting Alex's gaze with an intensity that made Alex's breath catch. "But lately, I've been feeling things that don't fit into that box. And it's confusing the hell out of me." The confession hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Alex felt a mix of hope and fear rising in his chest. "What kind of things?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Jamie ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture Alex had come to recognize. "Things about you. The way I look forward to seeing you more than anyone else. How I think about you when we're not together. How I sometimes wonder." He trailed off, seeming to lose his nerve. "Wonder what?" Alex prompted, his heart hammering so loudly he was sure Jamie must hear it. Jamie took a deep breath. "I know I said I was only into girls, and I've never felt this way about a guy before. But there's something about you, Alex, something that makes me question everything I thought I knew about myself." He paused, then added in a rush, "Would it be crazy if I asked if I could kiss you? Just once. Just to see." The request hung in the air between them, unexpected and life-altering. Alex sat frozen, 1,000 thoughts racing through his mind. This was Jamie, his friend, the guy who had explicitly said he was only interested in women, the person who had become such an important part of his life in such a short time. What would this mean for their friendship? Was Jamie just curious, or was there something more? And what about Alex's own feelings, which he'd been carefully keeping in check all these weeks? Society had always drawn such clear lines around sexuality. You were this or you were that, with little room for exploration or fluidity. Alex had seen friends struggle with coming out, had witnessed the judgment and sometimes rejection they faced. He'd also seen the damage done by those who treated same-sex attraction as an experiment, leaving real hearts broken in their wake. Was that what this would be? An experiment for Jamie that could leave Alex picking up the emotional pieces? Yet beneath all these swirling concerns was a simple truth that Alex couldn't deny. He wanted this. He had been drawn to Jamie from the moment they met, had cherished every moment of their growing closeness, had felt his pulse quicken with each casual touch. He had pushed these feelings aside, convinced they could never be reciprocated, but now here was Jamie, vulnerable and honest, asking for something Alex had only allowed himself to imagine in his most private thoughts. "Are you sure?" Alex finally asked, his voice unsteady. "I don't want to be an experiment, Jamie. I don't want to be something you try and discard." Jamie reached out, taking Alex's hand in his. "That's not what this is," he said earnestly. "I'm confused, yes. I'm questioning things I've always taken for granted about myself. But my feelings for you are real, whatever label they might or might not fit under. I need to know if what I'm feeling is real or if I've built it up in my head." Alex looked down at their intertwined fingers, then back up at Jamie's face. Open, nervous, hopeful. "Okay," he said softly. "Just once." The moment stretched between them, tense with anticipation. Then Jamie leaned forward, hesitantly at first, closing the distance between them. Their lips met in a gentle, questioning touch that quickly deepened as initial uncertainty gave way to genuine desire. Alex felt Jamie's hand come up to cup his face, felt the slight tremor in his fingers, the warmth of his palm against his cheek. The kiss was both exactly and nothing like what Alex had imagined, tender yet urgent, familiar yet thrillingly new. When they finally pulled apart, both slightly breathless, a charged silence filled the room. Jamie's eyes were wide, surprised, as if he hadn't expected his own reaction. He began, then stopped, seemingly at a loss for words. "Yeah," Alex agreed, understanding completely what Jamie couldn't articulate. The kiss had changed something fundamental between them, had shifted the ground beneath their feet in ways neither of them had fully anticipated. Jamie's phone chimed with a text, breaking the moment. He checked it quickly, then looked back at Alex with regret in his eyes. "I have to go, early department meeting tomorrow." He stood, movements awkward where they had always been fluid before. "Can we talk about this soon? I need some time to process." Alex nodded, trying to ignore the sinking feeling in his stomach. "Of course. Take whatever time you need." After Jamie left, Alex sat alone in his apartment, replaying the kiss in his mind, wondering what it meant for both of them. The next few days were excruciating. Jamie's texts became less frequent, more formal. Their usual easy banter was replaced by polite inquiries about each other's days. Alex began to fear that one kiss had destroyed the friendship he valued so deeply. When they finally met again, at a quiet corner table in a cafe far from campus where Jamie wouldn't run into colleagues, the tension between them was palpable. Jamie looked tired, dark circles under his eyes suggesting sleepless nights that matched Alex's own. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," Jamie began after they'd exchanged awkward greetings. "About that night, about the kiss, about everything, really." Alex nodded, bracing himself for rejection, for it was a mistake speech he'd been rehearsing responses to in his head. But Jamie surprised him. "I've spent my whole life fitting myself into categories that other people created. Straight, masculine, normal, whatever that means. I never questioned it because it seemed to fit well enough." He paused, taking a sip of his coffee. "But that kiss made me realize how much I've been limiting myself, how much I might have missed by never allowing myself to explore beyond those boundaries." Hope flickered in Alex's chest, but he tamped it down, not wanting to misinterpret Jamie's words. "What are you saying, exactly?" Jamie met his eyes directly. "I'm saying that I don't know exactly how to label what I'm feeling for you, but I know it's real. I know that kiss wasn't a fluke or a curiosity. It was something I've wanted to do for weeks but didn't have the courage to acknowledge, even to myself." The conversation that followed was one of the most honest Alex had ever experienced. They talked about fear, Jamie's fear of having to redefine his identity, of facing judgment from family and colleagues, of navigating a type of relationship he had no experience with. Alex shared his own fears, of being a phase, an experiment, of investing emotionally in something that might not last. "I can't promise I won't make mistakes," Jamie admitted. "This is all new territory for me. But I can promise that what I feel for you is genuine. And I'd like to see where it could go, if you're willing to be patient with me." That conversation marked the beginning of a new chapter in their relationship, one filled with both beautiful discoveries and difficult challenges. They decided to take things slowly, dating privately while Jamie became more comfortable with his evolving understanding of his sexuality. There were awkward moments, like when Jamie introduced Alex as "my friend" to colleagues, and painful ones, like when Jamie's parents visited and he panicked, asking Alex to pretend they were just roommates. But there were also moments of profound connection that made the difficult times worthwhile. The first time Jamie reached for Alex's hand in public, a small gesture of defiance against his own fears. The night Jamie admitted, voice soft in the darkness of Alex's bedroom, that he had never felt as understood or accepted as he did with Alex. The afternoon they ran into Jamie's ex-girlfriend, and Jamie introduced Alex as "my boyfriend," without hesitation, his voice steady and proud. Their friends reacted with varying degrees of surprise and support. Most were accepting, though some questioned Jamie's sudden change in sexuality, suggesting it might be a phase or confusion. These comments stung, but they also led to important conversations between Alex and Jamie about identity, fluidity, and the limitations of labels. "People want everything to fit into neat boxes," Jamie observed one evening as they walked home from dinner with friends. "They're uncomfortable with the idea that sexuality might be more complex than the categories we've created." Alex nodded, squeezing Jamie's hand. "It's easier to understand things when they have clear definitions. Messy human emotions are harder to categorize." Jamie stopped walking, turning to face Alex. "That's what I've been trying to figure out, how to define what I am now. Am I bisexual? Pansexual? Still straight but with one exception? None of the labels seem to capture exactly what I feel." Alex considered this. "Maybe you don't need to rush to label it. Maybe it's enough to know that you feel what you feel, and it's real, regardless of what name you give it." This perspective, that feelings could be valid without fitting perfectly into existing categories, became a cornerstone of their relationship. They learned to navigate the complex terrain of Jamie's evolving identity together, celebrating small victories and supporting each other through setbacks. 6 months after their first kiss, they faced their biggest challenge when Jamie was offered a prestigious position at a university across the country. The job was a dream opportunity, but it meant making decisions about their relationship that neither had anticipated having to make so soon. "I want you to come with me," Jamie said, his voice firm with certainty that surprised even him. They were sitting on the same couch where they'd shared their first kiss, the memory of that night still vivid between them. "I know it's asking a lot, to uproot your life for a relationship that's still relatively new. But the thought of doing this without you, it doesn't feel right." Alex took a deep breath, considering the magnitude of what Jamie was proposing. "Are you sure? This would mean being out as a couple in your new department from day one. No more introducing me as your friend or roommate. Are you ready for that?" Jamie reached for Alex's hand, his grip firm and sure. "I've spent too much of my life hiding parts of myself to fit other people's expectations. I don't want to start this new chapter by denying one of the most important relationships in my life." He smiled, the warm, genuine smile that had first drawn Alex to him all those months ago. "Besides, I think the guy who asked if he could kiss you just once is long gone. Now I can't imagine not kissing you every day." The decision wasn't easy. Alex had to consider leaving his job, his friends, the town he'd lived in his entire life. But in the end, the choice came down to a simple truth. His life was fuller, richer, more authentic with Jamie in it. The challenges they'd faced together had only strengthened their connection, and the thought of continuing that journey together, even in an unfamiliar place, felt right in a way few things had before. 2 months later, they packed their belongings into a rented moving truck and set off across the country. The drive was long, filled with roadside diners, cheap motels, and conversations about their hopes and fears for this new beginning. On their last night before reaching their destination, they sat on the hood of the truck in a deserted rest stop, looking up at stars that seemed impossibly bright away from city lights. "Do you ever think about that night?" Alex asked, his head resting on Jamie's shoulder. "When you asked if you can kiss me just once?" Jamie laughed softly. "Only about 1,000 times. I was so terrified. I had this whole speech planned about how it was just curiosity, just to see. No big deal if it didn't mean anything. All these excuses to protect myself if you rejected me or if I didn't feel what I thought I might feel." "And then?" Alex prompted, though he knew the answer. Jamie turned to face him, the starlight reflecting in his eyes. "And then I kissed you, and all those excuses became irrelevant. Because it wasn't curiosity or confusion, it was recognition. Like my heart was saying, 'Oh, there you are. I've been looking for you.'" Alex smiled, remembering his own overwhelming emotions from that night. It's funny how one moment can change everything. If you hadn't found the courage to ask that question, "I think we would have found our way to each other eventually," Jamie said with certainty. "Some connections are too strong to be denied forever." As they sat there under the vast sky, on the cusp of their new life together, Alex reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. From a chance meeting in a bookstore to this moment of profound connection and shared future, their path had been neither straight nor simple. There had been confusion, fear, and difficult conversations, but also joy, discovery, and a deepening understanding of what it meant to truly accept oneself and another person. The next morning, as they drove the final stretch toward their new home, Alex glanced over at Jamie behind the wheel, confident, excited, no longer the man who had once defined himself by limitations and categories. The transformation wasn't just Jamie's, though. Alex, too, had changed, growing more secure in his own worth, more willing to take risks for something meaningful, more understanding of the complex nature of human connection. Their story wasn't perfect or easy, and they both knew challenges still lay ahead. Jamie would continue to navigate his relationship with his identity, and they would both face the usual struggles of any couple building a life together. But as they crossed the city limits of what would become their new home, one thing was certain: that single question, that request for just one kiss, had set in motion a journey neither of them regretted embarking on. Sometimes the most profound changes begin with the smallest acts of courage, the willingness to question, to explore, to step beyond the boundaries we've accepted without examination. For Jamie and Alex, that courage had opened the door to a connection neither had imagined possible, a love that defied easy categorization but was no less real for its complexity. And in that complexity, they had found something beautiful, the freedom to define their relationship on their own terms, to write their own story outside the confines of others' expectations. As they pulled up to their new apartment, ready to unpack both their belongings and this next chapter of their lives, Jamie turned to Alex with a smile that held all the certainty he had once lacked. "Ready for this?" Alex nodded, returning the smile with equal confidence. "With you? Always." And with that simple exchange, they stepped forward together into the future they had chosen, one built not on labels or limitations, but on the authentic connection they had found in each other. A connection that had begun with one tentative question and blossomed into something neither could have anticipated but both now treasured beyond measure. Total _char_count, 18,748.